62 AD is not the right year, as we're going to see. 30 AD has to be the year. And we'll find that out why.
Probably a very dumb question. How do we know how Jewish people kept their calendar? It's obviously the same then as it is now, and that's how we know. Because I'm wondering, like, if it's a 7 or a 12, I don't know.
Their calendar was based on months.
Right. Okay.
So they had a new moon, they had 12 new moons, and then they had the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but they didn't start the first month until the barley was green or something. So
this is very inaccurate, their years.
no, their years are actually
very accurate?
actually more accurate than ours.
Okay.
It just like it catches up.
Barley.
Oh, it's a good barley year.
What if it rains and the barley doesn't green? I mean, we don't necessarily know how accurate. So it could all work out perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we don't know. Maybe one of their years was a little bit longer.
Right. Exactly. Because sometimes they have a 13-month year.
Or what about the day, the prophet kept the sun still? Isn't there, does that matter? I'm not trying to be facetious. I really read somewhere on one of these websites,
that was long
counterfacts, that day.
Yeah.
Did you figure this out?
Yeah. Anyway, where were we?
Sorry.
We're getting ready to talk about where the 40-year gaps come from. Yeah.
Okay.
How we decide where 40 comes from?
Like I said before, there's a necessary gap. You have to have a gap, otherwise it's hard to. Like there's 62 weeks, not of decades anymore. It's not of years, but 62 weeks of months, which was when Jesus was born until the day that he went up into heaven. So he was cut off, as it says in the Bible there, but not for himself. There is exactly 62 weeks of months, according to the birthday and the day that he rose. This guy E.W. Faustus, I should have brought his book, but he predicted that he was the one who said it, and he got it from basically Bible. So when we're going to get into that a little bit later. We'll get into it tonight, though. It's very powerful.
Is that 33 years? It's 36, isn't it?
6 BC to
30 AD.
30 AD is 35 years.
Isn't it known that Jesus died while he lived for 33 years?
Yeah, that's not
Accurate?
This is more accurate.
I thought it says in the Bible, though.
It doesn't say it, no.
33 years.
Doesn't say anywhere in the Bible.
Oh, I just read it the other day.
No, you
I
didn't
thought
just
I
read
read
it.
it.
You didn't just read it. It's not in the Bible.
It talks about his ministry being 3 years.
Yeah.
They're talking about his age, I don't think.
It doesn't even say his ministry was 3 years.
It does. Well, I'll try to find it.
Okay.
I won't say it doesn't.
Okay. It doesn't even say that.
I'll try to find it.
That's 30. Am I doing the math wrong? It is 36 years, though, right?
30.
No. 35. You don't count the year between 1 BC. There's only 1 year between 1 BC and 1 AD. There's only
There's no
one
zero.
year. There's no 0 year. So it's 35. Very good, though. You edited it right.
How would you like to be living in that year?
There's no 0 AD, I guess. Yeah, that's true.
Transition.
Yeah, that's true.
Transition.
Zero.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Because nobody would have a birthday because they would be in zero.
Okay, so being we're talking about the dates and stuff, why don't we go to Appendix B?
Got a little bit up in the birthday glide.
How I got Judith Cyrus to be 536 BC, but it's very important because if I'm going to say Jesus was born in 6 BC, 7 weeks of Beck 46 BC, that means that there's 40 years in between the promise of Jesus coming and Jesus coming. There's 40 years in between. 40 years is an acceptable. Why do I think 40 years is an acceptable time between the 7 weeks and the 6 weeks? was 40 days and 40 nights. The temptation in the desert, what happened?
Jesus was tempted 40 days in the desert, right?
I was thinking of something else. What? The Israelites won 40 years, right. So that's actually the one I'm thinking of. Because God said to Moses, let my people go, and we're going to go out into the wilderness, and we're going to go into what? Land from promised land, right. Now, was it in God's mind that it was going to be 40 years later? When he told Moses, go out and you're going to go to the promised land, was it in his mind that you're going to go there 40 years from now?
No.
Was it in God's mind?
When people sinned as greatly as they did, that's when it was decided.
That's right. That's right. If they didn't sin, if they didn't have that encounter with the golden calf and all of that, they wouldn't have taken 40 years. So that's a breach of promise. I just think it's fitting that there's a 40-year gap between the promise of Messiah coming, because once it's written down like that, 7 weeks, Jesus and Messiah is going to come. Messiah is promised to come, but he didn't come. We had to wait 40 years before he came. The same exact thing happened to the promised land, going into the promised land. They had to wait 40 years before it happened. And then after Jesus was cut off and not for himself, there was another 40 years for what? Going back to the map now. Yeah, the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, so it's 40 years of another time of suffering that the temple is there. I don't know if God was in the temple or not, but it was just there at least. And then all of a sudden it's not there.
70 AD is a fact.
But that's pretty definite. That's a pretty definite one.
This is when the Jews tried to fight the Romans, and the Romans came back and destroyed Jerusalem. Destroyed the temple.
You were talking about his
Birthday. Okay, yeah. Appendix B. Number 1. The father of John the Baptist, Zechariah, was a minister of the order of Abijah. That's Luke 1:5. This order was one of 24. You get that out of 1 Chronicles 24:7-8. And each order served for 7 days. You get that from 2 Chronicles 23:8. This establishes a cycle in which every course is in service every 168 days. So it's a clock. It's a living clock that started from David and it was kept on going up until the temple was destroyed in 70 AD. And number 2, Faustus claims that these cycles began Passover 986 BC, which is not too relevant to this, but his evidence is convincing. And Faustus also uses this date when he confirmed through the cycles that 588 BC was the year the temple was destroyed. And we talk about that in Appendix A. So in 588 BC, the temple was destroyed, and in the Talmud it talks about what priest cycle was in their course. So we can go back in 168 time elements, and we know what happened in 588 BC. Making this clock thing, John the Baptist's father could have conceived. They could have conceived. So in other words, 168 days before and after the date that he picks. But it had to be, then.
So that he only served for a week at a time, though?
Yeah, each order served for 7 days. Yeah, but they had to wait 168 days before the next time they served.
But we don't know where Zechariah started in that cycle, right?
What do you mean?
Like, if he were to only serve a week, and he would serve everyone 168 days, we don't know when he started his week. Within time.
Right.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You can tie it in with the 588 BC time because they know who was in service at that time. So that's how he got this figure. So you have an anchor. It's an anchor date. It's like fixed at 588 BC, and it's you got this Talmud. It was burning the temple was a very big thing.
This is an argument for the year, not necessarily for the date. That's
well,
all
no,
I'm
the
saying.
date.
Okay.
It's an argument for the date because it's Tish B'Av. The Jews fast on the 9th of Av, they call it, which is the 5th month. Av is the 5th month, and they fast on the 9th of Av because there's always something bad that happens then. And the first thing that happened bad was the temple was destroyed by Babylon. That was the first time, something bad happened. So this was a date that was like a horrible thing in their life, and they remembered everything about it. And they remembered who was in the force at that time. And it's even in the Bible. Actually, the Bible talks about it as being the 10th day of Av. They call it the 9th of Av, but they always fast for the 9th of Av. But the Bible talks about the 10th of Av, it being destroyed, burned. Again, that's in the Appendix A. Okay, so again, I was reading here. This is important because it limits the number of dates in which John the Baptist could have been born. December 15th, 7 BC, is one of those dates. Multiples of 168 days before this date and after this date would be other possible dates for John's birth. This is because we know that Elizabeth conceived after Zechariah completed his course, Luke 1, 23 and 24. Item 3. Elizabeth was in her 6th month when Mary conceived, Luke 1, 26. This means that Jesus was born on May 14th, 6 BC, plus or minus a few days, if John was born December 15th, 7 BC. Everybody got that? One of the other dates, then we'll have to go to one of those other dates.
That probably would have been like shepherds, and then there's other prophecy or other time elements we get from like what was going on, right?
Yeah.
When Jesus was born, like the shepherds were out in the field.
So winter was probably not. 4. Christian scholar. Now this is a big one. Christian scholar Clement of Alexander lived 1.5 centuries after Jesus. Clement recorded in Stramata XX1 that the birth date of Jesus in an Egyptian date that translates to May 14th, 6 BC. I don't know, but that's I don't know. I don't know, but to me, what excites me about it is the exact date that fits everything else here.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5.
So that makes it kind of
It's just one thing, 5. Tertullian, a lawyer of the same time as Clement, wrote that Jesus was born during the reign of Saturnius, governor of Syria, and he was governor of Syria from 9 to 6 BC. So this makes, again, 6 BC to be a candidate year. Number 6, historians set the date of Herod to be 4 BC. Sometime before his death, he inquired of the wise men as to when they saw the star. It must have been a year or two earlier, Matthew 2:16, because he had all the kids killed from 2 years and under. So he's dead at 4 BC, right? So he had to say this at least 5 BC, and he's killing all the kids 2 years and younger. So again, 6 BC fits that too. So all of that, I think all of that is pretty fantastic, don't you? All right, now let's go to the proof of his 30 AD death year. Month and day can be determined because we know that Jesus died at the time of Passover. This one's basically easy. A few points must be made before we start. I go through this whole thing here. You can read that on your own there. But I go through the whole thing so that in the next page, right above the paragraph that has the 3, say, all the above was said to make clear that the Last Supper was on the 14th night of the month. So I go through this big argument just to make sure that everybody knows that the Last Supper is on the 14th night of the month. And anybody can argue it if you want, but read that first. Number 3.
Are you a Last Supper on Wednesday guy, or are you a Last Supper on Thursday guy?
On the Last Supper he died on the Thursday. So the Last Supper was the night before that, wasn't it, right?
So it's the pre-Seder dinner.
Yeah. Well, actually, Wednesday night is their day begins tonight. So it's confusing. So it was really a 14th day that he died, but it was 14th night began that. So the night before he died, it was his Last Supper, which was the 14th day. See?
Because then the body was dead for 3 days, or 3 nights. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then he rose on Sunday. Right. So that adds up better.
Right. Number 3, actually I say that right here. After the 14th night begins the 14th day, which was called Preparation Day. The evening after the 14th day begins the Feast of Unleavened Bread. This is the first of 7 night days in which no leavened bread is to be eaten. And the last of this week is the 21st day. The Feast of Passover is held on the 14th night. The 14th day that follows is a day to rid the house of leaven and prepare the week of unleavened bread. So that's Exodus 12:15. Even the first day you shall put away leaven out of your houses. So when Jesus died, it was the day that, according to the law, the people were to put leaven out of their house. And leaven is a symbol of, has been used by Jesus to be a symbol of. He said, beware the leaven of the Pharisees. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. Sin and evil, yeah. And that's the day that, what they had to do was take all the leaven. In other words, that they go into their cupboards and they take the leaven that they use to bake bread, and they get it out, they throw it out. They throw it out. And any bread that they have in the house that they cook, baked, any cookies or anything, that they take it and they throw it out. They hunt through the house, throw out the bread, throw out the leaven, and the bread that has leaven. And that night, that following night, is the high Sabbath. It's called the high Sabbath. It's the high day of rest. It's the beginning of the 7 days where the day he died was the day of preparation for taking out the leaven.
Okay.
That evening began the high Sabbath. So they had to get him, after he died, they had to get him into the grave before the sunrise, before the sunset. Right? Because they couldn't work. So that was the high Sabbath. It's important in this line of thought that it was the high Sabbath. Because he, I'll just verbally go over. Because he had to be in the grave for how many days and nights? 3 days and 3 nights. Just as Jesus once said, just as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, so must the Son of Man be in the belly of the earth 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days and 3 nights. Okay? Thursday, he died like 3 o'clock, something like that. He died about 3 o'clock, and they had to get him into the grave before sunset, which was about 6 o'clock. So it was like a hurried type thing. And that Thursday counts as the first day, even though it's only 4 hours or 3 hours. That counts as the first day. All right? That's an important thing. It's not 3 groups of 12. It's 3 days. And he died on that day. He's in the belly of the earth that day. That counts as 1 day. All right? So then, the next day is Friday. It's not a Sabbath, but it's a Sabbath because it's the high Sabbath. It's the Passover's first Passover Sabbath. And the next day is Saturday. It's the normal Sabbath. And the following day is Sunday, which is the day, first day of the week it's called, which is the day he is alive out of the grave. Very early in the morning, which means he came out of the grave during the night. So there was a piece of the night, that last third night, that he was out of the grave, which he counted as the third night. And, so the other piece that goes with this is the women had to wait until the Sabbath day was over, because they couldn't do what?
Adorn the grave.
They couldn't adorn the grave. They had to wait till the Sabbath was over, right? So they put Jesus in the grave, right? That's already the high Sabbath. They can't adorn the grave yet because they can't work. So the next day is Saturday. After that Sabbath is Saturday. They can't work again. So they have to wait until Sunday morning before they can adorn the grave. Right? So that accounts for that what I'm getting at is there has to be 2 Sabbaths in a row in order for that situation to happen. There has to be a high Sabbath and then a normal Sabbath, right? Next to each other. All right? The only year that happens is 30 AD. That's close enough for our calculations and our discussion and to make anything relevant. The only year that happens is 30 AD. So it has to be 30 AD, and according to the 14th day and all that stuff that has to happen, we know exactly when he died, and we know that he was 3 days, in the earth, and then he was 40 days on the ground, on earth before he went up into heaven. So we know exactly when he rose. So we have exactly. Now let's go to the next 2 weeks of months. The end point we have here the 28th day of the second Hebrew month. In our terms, it's 5/17/30 AD. We know that exactly. The beginning point, 28th day of the second Hebrew month, translates to 514 BC. That was all that logic that we just had. One of them was Clement saying that he was born that day, and the other was John the Baptist with the cycles of the priests, and the fixed date of when the temple was burned in 588, and all of that logic brings us to that date. And if you do the math here, in the box here, the lunar month is 29.5306 days long. The biggest piece that you need to multiply is that 431 months. That turns out to be 12,728 days. And anyway, the whole thing comes out exactly. That's the beauty of this whole thing. That's the amazing part about this whole thing. 62 times 7 times a month, the time for a month, brings us exactly. So we have the 7 weeks, the 490 years, we have the 40-year gap, and then we have the 62 weeks, which turns out to be 35 years. And then we have another 40 years, and all of the first 69 weeks are accounted. Help from God. I tell you one thing. When I saw the prophecy, when I saw that it was Jesus, it was Messiah, when I saw the term, the title in there, and I knew he had to fit in this prophecy, I wanted to understand how. This is how I first got into it. And I struggled just like those other guys, struggling with 69 and 7 together too. I was doing that too. I had no idea. And I happened to come across this guy Faustus' book, and I just figured, all right, so that's pretty strong arguments of his birthday and his death day and all that. And I just plugged in the multiplication like I did here, and it came out to 62. I flipped. I flipped.
Nobody else has to do this.
I don't know.
Wait, so 62 weeks of months. We know that 62 weeks is 434 days. Right? Yes.
Yeah.
So how do we make that? How do you make that of a month?
I said you can plug in a different. It's a week. It's a 7. It's a 7.
Okay.
The term is a 7. 7 what? 7 elements of time. What are the elements of time? You have to try to plug different ones in to see where they fit.
What did you plug in?
I plugged in a month for this one.
And so you
I plugged in a decade for the other one.
So, but this is 62 months? No.
62 weeks a month. 62 times 7 times 29
times 29
and a half. And there's one more week left after 70 weeks, right? There's one more week left. What is that week? And what does it consist of? That's where we're going to later on and we'll figure it out. But that one turns out to be 7 weeks of 40. I mean, 1 week of 40s. 1 week of 40s. We'll get to how I got that. Or it's a week of vials. That last week of vials. And that's the one thing I wanted to go over. Reminds me. What constitutes a week? What makes this week as part of the prophecy? Why? Why today, this day? Why can't this day be included in this prophecy? Because the prophecy concerns thy people and thy holy city, Jerusalem. Right? Is Jerusalem holy right now? No. Why isn't it holy?
There's no temple.
There's no temple. And who lives in the temple? God lives in the temple. So if God is not if there's no temple and God's not in the temple, it's not a holy city. See? So that's why today cannot be included in this 70-week prophecy. We're the temple, but thy people and thy holy city. We're not thy holy city. We are his people. But he was talking to Daniel, saying, your people too. Besides. When is that going to happen? When Jerusalem is going to be holy again? When the temple is rebuilt. When does that happen?
When 7-year reign.
During the last 7 years, it's after Jesus comes back, the millennium. Actually, the